Del Shannon was an American rock and roll and country musician and singer-songwriter who is best known for his 1961 #1 Billboard's hit Runaway. Biography: Westover was born in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and grew up in nearby Coopersville. He learned ukulele and guitar and listened to country and western music, including Hank Williams, Hank Snow, and Lefty Frizzell. He was drafted into the Army in 1954, and while in Germany played guitar in a band called the Cool Flames. When his service ended, he returned to Battle Creek, Michigan, and worked as a carpet salesman and as a truck driver in a furniture factory. He found part-time work as a rhythm guitarist and singer Doug DeMott's group called the Moonlight Ramblers, working at the High-Low Club. When DeMott was fired in 1958, Westover took over as leader and singer, giving himself the name Charlie Johnson and renaming the band into the Big Little Show Band. In early 1959 he added keyboardist Max Crook, who played the musitron. Crook had made recordings, and he persuaded Ann Arbor disc jockey Ollie McLaughlin to hear the band. McLaughlin took the group's demos to Harry Bork and Irving McAneek of Talent Artists in Detroit. In July 1960, Westover and Crook signed to become recording artists and composers on the Big Tip label. Bork suggested Westover use a new name, and they came up with Del Shannon, combining Mark Shannon a wrestling pseudonym used by a regular at the High-Low Club with Del, derived from the Cadillac Coupe de Ville, his favorite car. Success equals, he flew to New York City, but his first sessions were not successful. McLaughlin then persuaded Shannon and Crook to rewrite and re-record one of their earlier songs, originally called Little Runaway, using the musitron as lead instrument. On January 21, 1961, they recorded Runaway, which was released as a single in February 1961, reaching #1 in the Billboard chart in April. Shannon followed with Hats Off to Larry, which peaked at #5 and #2 on Cashbox in 1961, and the less popular So Long, Baby, another song of breakup bitterness. Runaway and Hats Off to Larry were recorded in a day. Little Town Flirt, in 1962, reached #12 in 1963, as did the album of the same title. After these hits, Shannon was unable to keep his momentum in the U.S., but continued his success in England, where he had always been more popular. In 1963, he became the first American to record a cover version of a song by the Beatles. His From Me to You charted in the U.S. before the Beatles version. Burley Records and moved to Amy. By August 1963, Shannon's relationship with his managers and Big Tip had soured, so he formed his own label, Burley Records, named after his parents and distributed by Diamond Records. 2 singles were issued. The apparently Four Seasons-inspired Sue's Gotta Be Mine was a moderate hit, attaining number 71 in the US, and number 21 in the UK. The second single, That's the Way Love Is, did not chart, and Shannon patched things up with his managers soon after. In early 1964, he was placed on Amy and the Burley label disappeared. He returned to the charts immediately with Handyman, Do You Wanna Dance? And 2 originals, Keep Searchin', and Stranger in Town. In late 1964, Shannon produced a demo recording session for a young fellow Michigander named Bob Seger, who would go on to stardom much later. Shannon gave acetates of the session to Dick Clark, and by 1966, Bob Seger was recording for Philadelphia's famed Cameo Records label, resulting in some regional hits which would eventually lead to a major label deal with Capitol Records. Also in late 1964, Shannon paid tribute to one of his own musical idols with Del Shannon Sings Hank Williams. The album was recorded in hardcore country honky-tonk style and no singles were released. Shannon opened with Ike and Tina Turner at Dave Hull's Hullabaloo in Los Angeles, California, on December 22, 1965. Moves to Liberty, United Artists and Island Shannon signed with Liberty in 1966 and revived Tony Fisher's The Big Hurt, and the Rolling Stones' Under My Thumb. Peter and Gordon released his I Go to Pieces in 1965. Shannon also discovered country singer Johnny Carver, who was then working in the Los Angeles area. he got Carver a contract with Liberty Records subsidiary Imperial Records, writing, producing and arranging both sides of Carver's debut single One Way or the Other / Think About Her All the Time. Carver went on to have nearly 20 country chart hits during the late 1960s and 1970s. The liner notes to his debut Imperial album acknowledge Shannon's role in his being brought to the label. In the late 1960s, not having charted for several years, Shannon turned to production. In 1969, he discovered Smith and arranged their hit Baby, It's You, which had been a hit for the Shirelles in 1963. In 1970, he produced Brian Hyland's million-seller Gypsy Woman, a cover of Curtis Mayfield's hit. During Shannon's Liberty Records tenure, success on a national scale eluded him, but he did score several regional U.S. chart hits with The Big Hurt, Under My Thumb, She, Led Along, and Runaway. That version also did well on Canadian and Australian pop charts. In early 1967 Shannon recorded the album Home and Away in England, with Oldham at the helm. Intended by Oldham as the British answer to Pet Sounds, Home and Away was shelved by Liberty Records, although a handful of singles were issued. It was not until 1978 that all of the tracks were eventually issued on a British album titled And Their Music Plays On. In 1991, all of the tracks were released in the US as part of the Del Shannon, The Liberty Years CD. In 2006, 39 years after it was recorded, Home and Away was finally released as a standalone collection by EMI Records in the UK. This CD collected the 11 original tracks in stereo and the 5 single releases in their original monaural mixes. In September 1967, Shannon began laying down the tracks for the further adventures of Charles Westover, which would be highly regarded by fans and critics alike, despite disappointing sales. The album yielded 2 1968 singles, Thinkin' It Over, and Gemini. In October 1968, Liberty Records released their 10th and final Del Shannon single, a cover of Dee Clark's 1961 hit Raindrops. This brought to a close a commercially disappointing period in Shannon's career. In 1972, he signed with United Artists and recorded Live in England, released in June 1973. Reviewer Chris Martin critiqued the album favorably, saying that Shannon never improvised, was always true to the original sounds of his music and that only Luke Christie rivaled his falsetto. In April 1975, he signed with Island Records. After he and his manager jointly sought back royalties for Shannon, Bug Music was founded in 1975 to administer his songs. A 1976 article on Shannon's concert at the Roxy Theatre described the singer as personal, pure and simple rock and roll, dated but gratifyingly undiluted. Shannon sang some of his new rock songs along with classics like Endless Sleep, and The Big Hurt. The Los Angeles Times wrote, Shannon's haunting vignettes of heartbreak and restlessness contain something of a cosmic undercurrent which has the protagonist tragically doomed to a bleak, shadowy struggle. Later career Shannon's career slowed greatly in the 1970s, owing in part to his alcoholism. Welsh rock singer Dave Edmunds produced the single, and the music plays on in 1974. In 1978 Shannon stopped drinking and began work on Sea of Love, released in the early 1980s on his album Drop Down and Get Me, produced by Tom Petty. The album took 2 years to record and featured Petty's Heartbreakers backing Shannon. However, RSO Records, to which Shannon was signed, folded. Further work on the LP was done for the Network Records label. 7 songs are Shannon originals with covers of the Everly Brothers, The Rolling Stones, Frankie Ford and Sea of Love by Phil Phillips. It was Shannon's first album in 8 years. In February 1982, Shannon appeared at the Bottom Line. He performed pop rock tunes and old hits. New York Times reviewer Stephen Holden described an easygoing pop country manner. On Runaway, and Keep Searchin', Shannon and his band rediscovered the sound in which his keen falsetto played off against airy organ obligatos. In the 1980s, Shannon performed competent but mundane country rock. In 1986 he enjoyed a top 10 hit as a songwriter when pop country singer Juice Newton released a single of her cover of Shannon's Cheap Love, which reached number 9 on the Billboard Hot Country chart. Shannon enjoyed a resurgence after re-recording Runaway with new lyrics as the theme for the NBC TV television program Crime Story. In 1988, Shannon sang The World We Know with the Smithereens on their album Green Thoughts. 2 years later, he recorded with Jeff Lynne of the Electric Light Orchestra, and there were rumors he would join the Traveling Wilburys after Roy Orbison's death. Previously, in 1975, Shannon had recorded tracks with Lynne, along with In My Arms Again, a self-penned country song recorded for Warner Brothers, which had signed Shannon in 1984. Death and legacy suffering from depression, for which he was taking Prozac, Shannon committed suicide on February 8, 1990, killing himself with a .22 caliber rifle at his home in Santa Clarita, California. He was cremated, and his ashes were scattered. Following his death, the Traveling Wilburys honored him by recording a version of Runaway. Lynne also co-produced Shannon's posthumous album, Rock On, released on Silvertone in 1991. Shannon was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1999. Film and television. Filmography It's Trad, Dad. Daytona Beach Weekend, The Best of Del Shannon, Rock 'n' Roll's Greatest Hits in Concert, a television program hosted by Wolfman Jack. Television American Bandstand, Milk Ranch Show, The Buddy Dean Show, Shindig. Hullabaloo, The Lloyd Thaxton Show, Shivaree, The Merv Griffin Show, Hollywood A Go-Go, Where the Action Is, Late Night with David Letterman, The Swingin' Kind ABC Television with Lee Allen, Let's Rock Tonight PBS host Fabian. Discography, Runaway with Del Shannon, Hats Off to Del Shannon, Little Town Flirt, Handy Man, Del Shannon Sings Hank Williams, 1661 Seconds with Del Shannon, This Is My Bag, Total Commitment, The Further Adventures of Charles Westover, Live in England. And the music plays on, Drop Down and Get Me, Runaway Hits. Greatest Hits, Rock On. Home and Away. Singles Epic at number 56 on Hot Country Songs. Literature, Bach, Richard. Del Shannon's Runaway success led to his downfall. Our Detroit. Retrieved August 17, 2011. DeWitt, Howard A Stranger in Town, The Musical Life of Del Shannon. Dubuque, Iowa, Kendall Hunt Pub. ISBN 978-0-7872-8854-9. References. External links, official website, Del Shannon at the Internet Movie Database, Del Shannon at AllMusic, Del Shannon at Discogs.